the first community panel event that we're hosting at Scottish Women in Business. My name is Bayile Adeoti. I am the president of Scottish Women in Business. Scottish Women in Business is a networking group for women who are leaders as well as businesswomen all over Scotland. I am joined tonight by Ray Banks from FIRSTPORT, Sarah Campbell from Awesome Glasgow, and Kirsty McLaughlin from Business Gateway. And this quarter's theme is community. We're looking to see what support is available for businesses and business leaders as we are entering one of the most challenging times in our economic climate. So I would love to hand over to my panelists and just ask them a little bit more about what they do and what their organizations do. So I'll hand over to Sarah first.
Oh, hi everybody. Thanks so much for having me along tonight. So my name is Sarah Campbell and I am the chair of Awesome Glasgow. So we are a micro grant giving organisation with a bit of a difference because we support anybody who has an idea to make Glasgow more awesome. So we work with individuals, we work with businesses, we work with charities. Really, if you've got a good idea, we want to hear from you.
Thank you, Sarah. And Ray Banks from FIRSTPORT.
Hi, everyone. Very pleased to be here. I am Ray Banks. I'm from FIRSTPORT, and I currently run the Social Entrepreneurs Fund, which is the main grant fund from FIRSTPORT and best one, obviously. That grant fund has many, many different streams, but to kind of smush it all down into one thing, it is basically a series of grants for social entrepreneurs to get them ideally from idea right through to investment. So there's a bunch of grants and then there's some very soft loans and investments that come later on. But the idea is that we're not necessarily dealing with businesses at a very early stage. We're dealing with the people who are behind those businesses and helping them to get to the point of incorporation and also investment at some point too.
Great, thank you so much, Ray. And Kirsty, what about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me along. So I'm Kirsty. I'm the operations manager at Elevator. So Elevator is a social enterprise headquartered in the Bridge of Dawn in Aberdeen. And my role is looking after the Business Gateway services in Aberdeen City and Shire. Business Gateway is a service that's available all over Scotland. So we also deliver the service in Tayside, which is Dundee, Perth and Angus, and North and South Lanarkshire, but Business Gateway in general is available throughout Scotland, just maybe not necessarily powered by Elevator. So Business Gateway is free support to anybody looking to start or grow their own business. So we support people from just an idea around their kitchen table, so maybe crafts, it might be cakes, maybe baking, through to businesses that have ambitions to take on staff or international ambitions. So at any point, you don't have to be growing to come to us. Appreciate that we are in difficult times. So we also have lots of support to help businesses assess where they're at and look at what opportunities they have to keep a steady ship and to try and kind of batten down the hatches and keep the business going through the tougher times.
Thank you so much. So the theme for this quarter is community. And I wanted to ask our panelists, how important are community projects for your organizations? So Sarah, again, would you kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, community is very much at the heart of what we do because everything that we support is based in Glasgow. How we work is that, as I say, we give out micro grants, and we're quite unique for a grant giving organisation because we have a pool of private donors who give the money, and all those individuals are people that live and work in Glasgow and are very passionate about supporting their local community. So we don't have like a lot of money in the bank. We've only been around for a few years. We basically, people donate money every month and then we pay that out to our grantees. So we give away £500 a time. And what kind of motivates me to do Awesome Glasgow, it's something that I do as a volunteer, my spare time. Everyone involved in Awesome Glasgow is a volunteer. And what motivates me is very much community and just that feeling of it's really people in the communities that often have the best ideas of how to fix things, and knowing that oftentimes there's maybe, if you are just a person with an idea, and it's fantastic to be in a panel with these two organisations because I think we feel very much the same. It's like if you're just a person with an idea, there's not always a lot of places where you can go to get that kind of help to get it off the ground. And that's why we do what we do, because we want to kind of inspire people to make a difference in their community.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What about yourself, Kirsty?
Yeah, so I mean, community projects are really important. So we, in the operations that we do in our regions, we want to be part of our communities. You want to support local businesses and local people because, as Sarah said, they often are the ones that identify what's going to work and what's going to help. So when people think of Business Gateway, they probably think of a lot of for-profit organisations, but we're seeing quite a significant rise in the number of people that are coming to us with not-for-profit ideas, and that's kind of reflected in the sort of startup stats as well. So we're really keen to be supporting people that have an idea that will benefit their community. We see lots of that on the ground in Aberdeen. Not too long ago I was at a community garden which was doing brilliant stuff to kind of help the people around them and bring people together during COVID, and help people help tackle isolation. But of course they have to sit and think about, well, what's our kind of long-term plans and how are we going to make this a sustainable and viable operation for us. So yeah, there's a lot of great things and people are passionate about it. So we're always really keen to support them as well.
Great. And Ray, you meet a lot of community projects and community organisations, but how important are they for the Scottish ecosystem?
Vital. And in a single word, they are vital. And I, if I can, I'd like to expand the definition of community beyond geography, because I think we deal with a lot of ideas for social enterprises, and as has previously been said, one of the kind of key things that we look for is some kind of lived experience or some kind of knowledge of the social impact or social problem that they're trying to fix. It's very difficult to do that from outside whatever community we're talking about, and the ones that don't tend to be as successful are the ones that tend to parachute in and go. I mean, my bad example is always poor people. You need to eat more kale. Like, it's that kind of stuff that gets an immediate recoil from the people in that community. We've done place-based initiatives before. We did one in Girvan, we did one in the Islands, we did one in North Edinburgh, which was all about ideation and idea generation from people within that community about what they want to see in terms of improvements. And very often it is those people who have never even thought about starting a business or any kind of initiative who have the best ideas and the most innovative ideas, because they don't have all that received wisdom that comes with being experienced in business. The other thing that I would say is, it's not just a geographical community that we look at, but we would look at communities of interest, particularly people with protected characteristics. For instance, we get a social enterprise that is working for the benefit of a certain subgroup like disabled or Black and ethnic minorities, we would expect that person to have some kind of experience. Because I mean, Bayile, you know yourself, when we were talking, like, I'm going to come from a very specific point of view that is not your beneficiary group. So I'm going to be trusting you to know what's best for your beneficiary group. I'm sorry if you can hear that. That's the cat kicking off. You do this to me. He's black. I'm black from him. But yeah, I think it's any kind of social enterprise needs to come from the social part of it. It needs to come from the community to have long-lasting impact in that community.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to jump to a question that if someone's sitting here, like, imagine that you've got a startup entrepreneur wanting to start something. What steps would they take when reaching your organization? What does the funding landscape look like if they were to connect with your organization? So Sarah, if I was to, how simple is the application form? What's the process like?
Okay, so we're open for applications 6 times a year. Occasionally we do a specialised round with a particular theme, but oftentimes it's just open. It's about a 1-page application, and we have 4 criteria. So we ask that your project has a budget. We ask that it has a G postcode. We ask that it is for benefit of the community, and we ask that it is awesome. And awesome is the X factor. And if people ask, is my project awesome? You think, well, maybe if you have to ask, it probably isn't. I would say that's the kind. If you don't have the confidence behind your project to say, yes, this is fantastic. But we really, we funded a hugely diverse range of projects, from a school community garden through to, there was somebody who built, it's called a wall of death, So it's like an old theme park attraction from the 1920s where people used to ride motorbikes round. And this guy during lockdown had managed to, a labour of love, he'd managed to get so far building it, and he just needed enough money to finish it off, and we gave him the money to finish it, and now it tours around Scotland. So there's really, from the smallest of gardens to the largest walls of death, like there's a real variety of projects we fund. And as I say, because we have a group of donors, it's actually the donors that review the applications themselves. And what we find is it's the passion that comes across in the applications, rather than, it's not about having the most polished application. It's not about having the best spelling or the best grammar. It's actually just about getting your idea across in an interesting and engaging way. So it's really, I wouldn't want anyone to be put off by writing a written application, because honestly, just tell us in the same way that you would tell me in a sentence about what your project's about, and it's really your love for what you do that will stand out.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What about yourself, Ray, with FIRSTPORT? What does the funding structure look like? I'm laughing because I have actually, I have to say for everybody watching, I have contacted every single organisation on this screen. So with the Awesome Foundation, I did look at the application. So I am a product of all these organizations. So it's interesting for me to be having these conversations from the other side. But we're just, for the purpose of this panel, Ray, would you please tell us what the funding process is?
Well, for startups, we'll do the startup point, because that's the entry point for most people. We also have a dreaded application form that is online and is very, very simple. And as Sarah said, it's one of those things that we don't put a huge amount of stock in, because we want to make it as accessible as possible to people. So if people do have potential accessibility issues, like for instance, if English is a second language, or they are dyslexic or whatever, that's fine. Some of the best social enterprises have had some of the worst applications that started. So that application comes in. It's basically around 3 main points, which are the kind of points that it will be assessed on, which is the individual, like what's the background, what's the experience of the individual, what's the drive, there's the passion there, which is really, really important. The business proposal, where's the money likely to be coming from for the enterprise, and the social impact, i.e. who are you helping, how will it change their lives, how will you measure it? Not everything needs to be ticked, not everything needs to be, spit polished. But if we've got an idea of what the business is, what happens then is there's usually about an hour's assessment, which is assessment in the broadest term. It's actually a chat with one of the relationship managers. They then kind of smush together a kind of capsule version of it. It goes to a panel make the decision. We're very keen on reiterating to any potential applicants that the application form is just a tiny part of the whole process. And number 2, the process itself is potentially a tiny part of the whole process, because it is never one and done with us. If there's something there, we will give specific feedback and ask people to reapply. And we're open all the time, because there's been applications that we've had have been underdeveloped, but in the course of coming through, sometimes a number of times, I'm not looking at anyone in particular, sometimes a number of times they have gotten exponentially better. And when they do finally get funded, they are like the best thing in the world, and they become our standard bearers. And half of the battle is getting people to engage with support and not being dissuaded and not being discouraged. Because if they are discouraged then something awful is going to happen later on that's going to be even worse for them. It's all about building resilience. But we are nice people, I like to think. Our relationship managers are nice people.
Thank you so much, Ray. Kirsty, what about yourself? What support is available for startup entrepreneurs?
Yeah, perfect. So Business Gateway, sorry, it should be clear, Business Gateway is different across all of Scotland, but the entry route is the same for everybody. So there is the website, which is bgateway.com. So people can go on there and find their local region. So they can then check in and find out where the closest office to them is, and that will give the phone number and the email address, or people can put an online inquiry form in. That will then get routed to the local office, and an advisor would typically give somebody a call within 3 working days and respond to their query and see how we can help. Now, some regions have funding, some regions don't, so it is very location dependent. The Business Gateway services are funded through each of the local authorities, so it is up to the local authorities as to what support and what funding is available in each area. So you're always best to chat to a local advisor and find out what the landscape is. Across Scotland, there is advisors available, there is lots of online webinars, there is workshops and networking events that take place in person. I suppose our goal in this piece is to help people build the business skills. People should be the expert in their own business, so their own field, their own industry, and we help them to be confident in kind of doing business as such. So I suppose where Sarah and Ray's organisations have application forms, so my advisors can help cast an impartial eye over any of them as well, or help to kind of tease out from people, well, what are you really doing? It's asking you for what's your unique selling point? Well, what does that mean, and what is really unique about it? And helping people kind of put that into words is quite important. And it's a confidential, impartial supporter, really. We want people to do well. We don't want to put barriers in place. We want to help G people on and get updates and see how they're doing with their business, whether that's them starting up or whether they've come to us after 5 years and they're looking at growing or they're looking at diversifying. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you so much. What trends are you all seeing with the startups that are coming across your organisation? So are you seeing any trends? Are you seeing any support requirements that they're looking for? I'll go to Sarah first. Anybody? Kirsty, you can start off if you want.
Yeah, I can jump in. So in terms of trends, startup requests, so people interested in starting a business, holds relatively steady. There has been a small drop compared to last year, but as I said earlier, there's actually been quite a significant increase over the past few years in the number of people interested in starting a not-for-profit, which is really good. People with kind of more social purpose to what they want to do with their business, and they don't want it to be about profit, they want to be about people and planet too. So that's really quite encouraging and good to see. I suppose in terms of types of businesses, there's the different trends that come along in different businesses. So we went through a period where we were seeing lots of brewers, lots of gins, lots of rums. I suppose they've probably faded away a little bit. From the Aberdeen perspective, for some reason, we're seeing an increase in the number of chocolate businesses, which is great. Love it. People getting to what they're passionate about, I suppose, as such. Of course, there's a lot of businesses that are going to be turning their eye towards net zero or going more green and trying to work out how that's best going to fit and what impact that's going to have on us all kind of longer term. So yeah, I'd say it's relatively steady. People would expect they would have dropped considerably from COVID in terms of startup inquiries, but they're steady. I would say people are taking a little bit longer. So, they're considering it for longer. They're probably mulling it over for longer, trying to get a bit of confidence in the market that they're looking to go into before they take that step. So I'd say some of our engagements are a bit longer, and maybe people do sometimes say, well, I'll consider it again in the new year. Of course, with the cost crisis, that's also playing on people's minds in terms of what their plans are, and potentially they're scaling them back a little bit. But that's, I suppose, the trends that I'm seeing with my team.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. Over to you, Sarah. What are you seeing in your trends?
Yeah, so I have a slightly different perspective, because we do see social enterprises applying to us, but oftentimes we have sort of community projects or charities applying to us, and sadly, I think it's just a reflection of the time we're living through. But we're seeing more people applying to us for more traditional charity things like dealing with poverty, people applying for money for food banks, for school clothing banks, for that sort of thing. And it's our organisation really. Our ethos is to fund things that are, more innovative or more different, or we want to kind of seed fund new project ideas. But there's obviously a massive need at the moment, so it's trying to balance those two things, I would say, is always one of our issues, because it's very hard not to be emotionally affected when you hear some of the sort of projects that are looking for money. So it's for us, it's trying to get the balance between the more kind of traditional charitable work and the funding the new and the innovative.
Great, thank you so much. What about yourself, Ray? What are FIRSTPORT seeing in the trends?
Well, we've been inundated with applications since COVID, and different types. I think like a different flavor of application. We got a lot during COVID because I think a lot of people were furloughed, and they were starting to, you know, as a lot of us were, starting to reassess their priorities in life. And a lot of those people went, I actually want to do something meaningful with my life, so I'm going to set up a social enterprise, which is very admirable of them. After COVID, like it's finished. More recently, it's been it's basically the food, fuel, i.e., energy, mental health, which appear to be direct responses to not only the aftermath of the pandemic or the more recent aftermath of the pandemic, but also cost of living crisis, also the energy bills, also just a general feeling that the mental health crisis, that if it's not already here, is definitely on its way, especially with young people and children, which they weren't feeling necessarily during COVID, is now kind of hitting home. And there are a lot more issues with mental health generally. So we are getting a lot of stuff around that, a lot of potential schools work. And again, like I said, now it's responses to cost of living. Back in the day, it was the Blue Planet effect. It was everybody watched Blue Planet and we got 1 million applications in for stainless steel straws. And we had to be quite hard on them. And now it's more, there are so, it's kind of a boom time because there are so many problems that need to be fixed. And I'm just very pleased and to see so many people in Scotland trying to do something about it. It's admirable.
Thank you so much. Now, each one of you has touched on the cost of living crisis. I was just wondering if we could look a bit deeper into that. What advice would you give to businesses right now for the cost of living crisis, that we can, get through the crisis and get over to the other side? What advice would you have, and what support are your organisations offering during this time? I'll start with you, Sarah.
I don't have any advice. I would say if you are in a position to support people in your local community, please consider doing so. If you're not somebody who regularly gives a charitable donation, please consider doing so. In my day job, I work as a fundraising manager for a national charity, and it's an interesting landscape at the moment. So I would, and obviously, for people applying to us, we only give very, very small pots of money, but we are very happy to hear about things that need a start to get seed funded. So if that's something, if people kind of want to take a risk and try something new, we're really happy to have that conversation with them.
Thank you so much. Kirsty, what about yourself? How can people receive support from Business Gateway and Elevator during the cost of living crisis?
Yeah, no problem. So it is tough. It's we look at it and we speak to the local councils that we represent in the Business Gateway services quite regularly around what can we do. Unfortunately, we can't pay people's energy bills, and I know that's the most pressing thing that businesses have. We're getting inquiries which are, my energy bills are normally, £5,000, and now I'm getting quotes for, £15,000. How can I handle that? In terms of some of the support we provided, I mean, a lot of it is on that, safe pair of hands, talking it through. It's stressful, sharing that problem and having that support, helps people ease a little bit. Doesn't solve the problem though. We've had a financial expert involved in a number of businesses, which is really, grab the information you can and make sure you understand it. Some businesses are quite guilty of chucking their stuff over to their accountant and maybe not fully understanding what the bottom line looks like. So, use your accountant and use the professional partners and professional services to understand your situation. Now, sometimes that might cost a bit of money, but, business advisors are all trained as well at helping to look at financials and understand, well, what are your profit margins here? What are your, how have your costs gone? Sometimes businesses don't realize that, that has increased over the number of years, and with a few changes, we could hopefully perk that up a little bit. So I suppose that's some of the advice, is gather the information and understand that people are nervous of numbers. I think when they want to be in financial control of their business, you need to feel comfortable with your balance sheet, with your P&L statement, and look at your cash flow regularly. And there's a lot of great software out there that helps you keep on track of that, to track it. So it is easier than it has been historically. As I said, for Business Gateway, it is the advisors. We have lots of webinars that are running quite regularly if people can't make in-person events. So keep checking in on those sort of titles. And as I say, you're reaching out to your local office, because different local regions will be doing some bits and pieces. I know in Aberdeen City and Shire, we're looking at a kind of strategy cost crisis workshop that we're going to be taking around the region to pull businesses together and speak to them. And we do, because we speak to the business community very regularly, we feed back the problems that we're seeing to our local authorities, to the Business Gateway national units, and it is the topic of conversation on the table most days at the moment.
Thank you so much. Ray, what about yourselves at FIRSTPORT?
Well, it's kind of twofold. Probably the most obvious thing that we would be advising people to do is to limit overheads as much as possible. There is this thing that we call a rush to premises with new ideas, where they like, I've got a great idea, I just need a building, and you're like, you have no idea what's going to happen to you getting that building. You're going to have all the maintenance, you're going to have all the energy bills and all the stuff like that. So the ones that have managed to avoid that are actually doing okay, because they're a bit more nimble, a bit more flexible, and the ones that are stuck in premises are getting their heads kicked in, frankly. But there are other ways to limit those overheads, and if that means scaling down for a while, that's fine, and we can help with that. The biggest, probably most important advice that we've been given, because there is very limited, we can't really give funds for energy bills, we can't really give kind of ad hoc funds, because we're not a kind of crisis funder in that respect, though we did do a lot of work over COVID, is tell us. If they're an awardee, tell us you're having problems. As you know, our relationship managers are called relationship managers rather than award managers. And kind of one of the chief properties of being relationship managers, you kind of have to be part social worker, part priest, part cheerleader. And we do try and do that wherever possible, because I think sometimes when people are panicking about this stuff, and rightly so, they're panicking about it, but I think part of that panic is down to the fact that they have no perspective on it happening to other people at the same time. Like, they're not alone, and it's not their fault. Something about social entrepreneurs in particular is because they have, there are no like unpleasant social entrepreneurs as far as I'm concerned. Like, they've all got a heart of gold. They're all wanting to do something. But one of the things they do tend to do is undervalue their own peace of mind. I think I found this in the charity sector as well. Like, people will get to the point and blaming themselves for not doing everything and not saving the world. So the other thing that we would definitely advise, and I get quite strict about it with people, is you need to take some time off. You are going to burn out. And if you burn out and the business fails, then think about all that social impact you haven't had. The pandemic was particularly bad for this, because private businesses didn't step up, charities were really struggling, social enterprises stepped into the gap and were run ragged for what we, assuming at the time, was just a few months. And 2 years later, they're like, they're punchy. My first duty as a relationship manager, and I still do have a caseload, is to my caseload. I don't care if the business fails, as long as they're all right. What I don't want to see is people breaking down, and the cost of living crisis on top of everything else, on top of supply chain issues and Brexit and pandemic, the pound tanking. Thanks, Liz. It's all kind of making people basket cases, and rightly so. But support is there, even if it's just emotional support, is available at all times from FIRSTPORT.
Thank you. I just want to, looking forward, because the year is almost finished, what plans do your organizations have, or what's the focus going to be for your organizations in 2023? So Sarah, I'll kick off to you first, please.
Yeah, we'll find out when we get there, to be honest. We are not a particularly forward planning organization. We're going to be having a big social event at the start of the year to kind of celebrate everything that we've achieved since the start of COVID, because obviously we went from having in-person meetups to going online. And we've not met a lot of our grant winners face to face. So we're planning to have a kind of a big social event to bring people together. One thing that we found that works really well with our organisation is that because we're place-based, the people who give our donations are very well networked. They work in lots of different organisations. So if we're not able to give if you're not able to give cash, we are often able to give advice or contact or something like that. So by bringing people together and doing the kind of networking side of things, that can often be very beneficial as well. So we're trying to kind of maximize being able to do that in person again, and offer that experience to everybody who we didn't get to meet during the pandemic. That's kind of our biggest plan for 2023 so far, and then we'll just see how it goes.
What about yourself, Kirsty?
Yeah, plans for 2023. So I suppose more of the same of what we're doing. Business Gateway has existed for a long time, and we'll continue to be a free source of support for anybody looking to start or grow their own business. I suppose my teams, we keep listening, and we want to know what businesses need. So we try and adapt to the changing trends. So even if that's within marketing, and it's like, okay, well, businesses need to be more digitally savvy. A couple of years ago it was Instagram, now it's TikTok and bits and pieces like that. So trying to keep the trends up to date. So there's different pieces on that, like algorithms and Google changing, and trying to react to that to make sure that we're giving people the most up-to-date information. In terms of in Aberdeen City and Shire, I have quite a small but mighty team. So we deal with around 2,500 inquiries a year, and I'm sure that's probably the same across the different regions in Scotland. So we have a wide client base, and we want to be within the communities and regularly engaging with our businesses. So we'll continue to do that, and be there as a support service. I suppose we'll see some changes over the next year, as we've mentioned. We've come out of COVID. People are still using kind of hybrid models. That's what we're continuing to do, and trying to get the best of both worlds in that way.
Okay, Ray, what does 2023 look like for FIRSTPORT? You've got a new CEO, a female CEO, and you've also got a deputy CEO. What changes are they bringing to the organisation?
Well, well, our new chief exec was our old deputy chief exec, or Koo, as we called her for the longest time, until she went, "No, I'm a deputy chief exec." Gail we're very, 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 very happy to have Gail as a chief exec. Not to diminish Josiah, our previous chief exec, but Gail has been around for a while with FIRSTPORT and understands FIRSTPORT back to front. She's been in the trenches with the rest of us, so it's really heartening to have that kind of beating heart back, because she was on maternity leave. That's all. She didn't leave for any reason. Jeremy's, who's our deputy chief exec, has just come into post, so I'll just assume that he's a lovely person too. In terms of what's happening for next year, I mean, there's a part of me who's going, let's just get through this year first. But we've got Launch Me has been redesigned, which was our support program for investment readiness, essentially, for social enterprises. That's been redesigned and redeveloped, so it's a bit more bespoke, and that'll be launching again publicly next year. We're going to continue to develop the investment side of things with the Boost It Fund, which was my ugly baby for the last few years. It's now starting to look a bit better looking. And the Catalyst Fund, which we're also doing. So there's that kind of investment side of things. In terms of the funds, the grant funds, honestly, the thing that I would really like to see, and the thing that I think we're really going to be pushing for, is not only huge numbers of applications, because once they're in, and we can kind of keep tabs on them and keep supporting them even if we don't get the money, but also diversity of applications, not just with kind of ethnicity, but also we're looking at younger social entrepreneurs, if we can possibly get young social entrepreneurs, many of whom again, have had their heads kicked in over the last couple of years with the pandemic. They are very much a focus for our Pounds for Purpose program, which is a 500 quid program. They're just kind of fairy dust program. Go try it, see what happens. But also ethnic minority social entrepreneurs who have typically gone towards private business when it actually feels more like a social enterprise. And I know, Bayile, you're working on that side of things for us too. But also disabled social entrepreneurs. We have been working to do a lot more networking on that front, because I feel like disabled social entrepreneurs will be able to speak to that particular social issue or accessibility issue around that better than anybody else. So I'm still desperately trying to find social entrepreneurs that do not fit the standard model. That's not to say that the standard model doesn't get funded, but you know me, I'm always interested in the weird stuff. Like, I would like to get some more esoteric stuff. We've had a guy who's testing bee DNA, which is weird and fascinating at the same time. We've got somebody who's doing children's shows, and yes, some of the starter got used to pay for a puppet, which I've never been able to live down. The other thing that we're going to hopefully be doing, we'll be doing, is the Social Innovation Challenge again next year. We just run one which was based around rural communities looking for innovative solutions to climate change or the climate crisis. Let's not lie to ourselves. Next year we'll be running it again, but it'll be, we don't know what the theme is yet, so we're kind of kicking around ideas for themes, and that's a 50 grand grant. So it's a nice big chunky piece of change, and also working a lot more with community groups where we can, because I feel like we get a lot of individuals, but I do feel like a lot of good work is happening with unincorporated, constituted community groups. So I'd kind of like to tap into that a bit more. So yeah, I'm busy next year.
Very busy. And Ray and Sarah, you've both touched on some examples of people that you've funded, but just wanted to ask you a little bit more. Tell us, like, Sarah, I know you can't have favorites, and Ray always tells me this, can't have favorites. Tell us about maybe an organization that you funded in 2022 and it just made you feel good when you funded them, and maybe you've seen the work that they've used £500 for and you've just thought, yeah, that is an awesome project. Tell us about an awesome project that you funded this year.
Well, like you say, all the projects that we fund are absolutely awesome, and I'm fascinated by the puppets. Like, that is just right up my street. Like, that is exactly the sort of projects I want to see applying to Awesome Glasgow. So if you have a puppet-based idea, you know where I am. So one of my favorite grants of all time, if I'm allowed to have a favorite, is one of the first grants we actually funded, which was about 6 years ago, which is a woman called Kay, who did mindfulness trainings for corporate organizations. That was her job. And she was really frustrated because it was only, this very beneficial practice was only open to people that could afford to pay for it from their companies. And she wanted to make it available to everybody. So she asked for £500 so that she could offer pay-as-you-go classes. So anybody who could afford to chip in could. If people couldn't afford, they could just go for free. And we invited her to come back and speak at one of our Roundup events 3 years later. And over the course of the 3 years, she's taken that £500 and managed to run hundreds and hundreds of mindfulness classes off the back of it. And they're still going because she just needed like a little bit of money in the pot to pay for the venues. So it's just been a completely self-sustaining enterprise. She got a whole new lease of life from it. When we first met her, she was incredibly timid. She found it so difficult to speak to us. And then seeing her 4 years down the line, she was this like transformed woman, incredibly confident, incredibly vibrant. And it was just amazing to see the impact of like what that startup money had. I mean, I'm just always amazed by the ingenuity of what people manage to do with a relatively small amount of money. And I always say, like, I wish we could give more, but I think just seeing the little bits of impact that small amounts of money can have. I feel like it would be amiss not to take the opportunity to mention Slag Hammers, which is a feminist welding collective. And they applied to us because they basically needed more safety equipment so they could offer more free classes for women, because they were too popular and they didn't have enough safety equipment to go around. So they basically were asking for welding masks and gloves, and we were absolutely delighted to give that to them. So yeah, I mean, really far too many to mention, but those are two highlights that stick out.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Kirsty, what about yourself?
Well, it's tricky. I suppose I'll go to the elevator side of things, because with Business Gateway, obviously it's confidential service. So unless we've had any press releases about clients, I can't really dish into the client portfolio that I've worked with. We ran our elevator awards back in June, and we had a Spirit of Enterprise award winner, which was a lady up in Peterhead who runs a business called Little Potters. And that was really, it's a pottery studio where you come in and you paint your pottery. But it was born out of helping people that have been isolated through COVID, suffering with mental health challenges, and just getting out and being creative and coming together as a community. And I thought that was a great story. The woman is extremely passionate about what she's doing and why she's doing it. And while it is a business, it is more there to be a hub in the community and bring people together. And I suppose the conversations that are created over your creations and bits and pieces like that are fantastic. So that's been one that sticks out to me.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing. And what about yourself, Ray? I mean, through FIRSTPORT, you must see many amazing organisations. Why didn't you tell us about one or two?
Do you mean apart from you? Because you have kind of been a bit of a standard bearer for the type of organisation, the type of entrepreneur that has, we do have favourites. Like, we love everyone, but there are certain types of entrepreneur or applications that come through that really either hit home personally for various reasons, or just there's just something there that just gets individuals excited about this. There's loads of them. I could bore you forever, but Bayile was one of them, who kept coming in, and it changed, and it changed, and it changed, and it became better and better and better. And look at you now, you've been out without us. No, I'm not saying that. It's the ones, honestly, and like as Sarah mentioned, it's the ones that kind of come in. The one of whom I was talking to today, Lou Irvin and Alice at Pride Outside. Yeah, I was talking to them today because they're coming to build it. But the very first conversation I had with Lou, she was very timid about being openly about the LGBTQ plus community as beneficiaries. And I stupidly, because I no boundaries here, just overstepping the mark, going, why would you be timid about that? I say, well, people might not want to pay us if they know they're the beneficiaries. And I was like, well, those people are homophobes, and you don't want those people as customers. You need to be true to what you want to do. And she took that and ran with it. I'm not saying it's anything to do with me. I think sometimes it's like somebody's got this idea that they've cherished, and actually hearing from somebody else going, no, it's a really good idea, is enough to give them that oomph to get them to the next stage. And they're now running workshops, diversity workshops for corporates in a market there is no real market. Like, they're the only ones like doing it properly well, and not as part of some tick box exercise. Like, it's really detailed stuff. I'm really, really proud of how far she's come in such a short period of time. The other ones I just kind of want to mention very quickly are a couple of guys in Grangemouth, Sustainable Thinking Scotland, started growing food for food banks just off their own back. No money, no income. And suddenly, because one of them's a massive nerd, started looking at biochar, which I'm still not entirely sure what it is. But it's like high-end fertilizer, but it can also be used to basically take impurities out of water. So they're using it as a kind of a water filtration device. So they've gone from sleeping in a polytunnel with an axe, because the locals were, the local delinquents were coming over and like trashing the place, to working with NASA on stuff in the space of like a few years. And they were people that, again, approached us rather timidly and said, I'm not sure would be eligible for anything, and just caught the imaginations of the people who talked to them. And then we went out of our way to try and go, right, this is what you need to do to get the money to do. Because it's all about the people in the end. It is.
Great, thank you so much, Ray. And Ray has touched on, yes, I'm a FIRSTPORT awardee. And I have to say to anyone watching this, I think I hate applications notifications. And I also would say that Ray has been a championing what Decmine has done, and he's always supported us with what we do. Sometimes he's not got what we do, but he's supported us anyway. And I think the thing about being an entrepreneur is you're always resilient. You just go for it. And Ray once likened me to a boxer, and I've just run with that. Sometimes I'll get knocked down, but I always just get up and I just think, okay, just keep going. You're just on round 5. You can see the end. You're going to win this. So how important is support for the people that you're supporting, and what support do you offer them once they've received a grant from yourselves? Is there any ongoing support, Sarah? Do you signpost?
Yeah, we try to, yes, we do. And we're actually looking at developing resources for people for where they can go and seek further funding, because that's something that I know a bit about, as it's what I do for my day job. And it's been really fascinating to hear about both these organisations tonight, because I'm sure a lot of people that apply to us would also be of interest to your two organisations. So yeah, I think you don't know what you don't know, do you? And I think sometimes people can feel that the world of funding's not for them, or find it a bit intimidating. So I think anything we can do to kind of signpost and break down some of those barriers is really good. And I feel also it's like the other panelists have said as well, sometimes just getting your idea out there, testing it out, getting some feedback on it, getting some questions like that that in itself can be a really useful process. And getting to have a bit of sort of back and forth conversation to kind of test out your ideas sometimes can be really useful.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Kirsty, what about yourselves? What support does Business Gateway offer? Elevator, do you have mentors? Do you offer?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, we're there for the life cycle of a business. So people do tend to come and use us in bursts. So maybe at the start, when they're thinking about it, and then they get up and running, and they're really excited and it's going well, so off they go. And then potentially they would come back to us at a later date with a bit of an update or maybe a challenge that they've had. So yeah, we're a pretty open door that people can come at any stage, at any age of business. It's funny you likened yourself to a boxer. We have an event on the 8th of November where one of the networking events, facilitated topics that we're going to be holding, the topic is every business has a plan until you get punched in the face. So that works in really well. So that's our Transform Business Festival that we're running. But yeah, I mean, really, we have some one-to-one services that businesses can come into, and they can work with an advisor on a more one-to-one basis for sometimes a year, 18 months, where that would be regular meetings. However, as I said, at any stage, people can get in touch and they can speak to an advisor over their phone or via email, or in virtual meetings. So yeah, it's really, we're a resource that's there to be used, and we want people to come back to us as many times as they need.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. Ray, what can FIRSTPORT offer entrepreneurs looking for support and mentorship?
Well, I mean, we provide business support through Just Enterprise, which we have. The awards team are very close to the business advisors, and the business advisors know all the kind of funding ins and outs anyway. So we work very closely with them. Also, the relationship managers themselves are very close to the awardees. I mean, I get the mick taken out of me for this, but I do take it very, very personally when people disappear off the face of the earth. And they're on my caseload. Like, I take that very personally because I think I've done something wrong. It may be that I need therapy. Who knows? But I do take it very personally, because especially if you believe in something, then they're hiding something because they don't think they can trust you. And that worries me, because I like to think that FIRSTPORT generates an environment where, yeah, we're managing the award, but we're also desperately trying to help you at every given moment. In terms of mentorship, well, it's one of those things people keep asking for, but do they really want it? We have embarked on a kind of indicative pilot with the Edinburgh Merchants to provide some mentorship from more of the kind of commercial vein. Mentorship does happen generally within networking events that we hold with different stage social entrepreneurs. Like, people who are working in the same space will tend to, connect with each other and work together. It's one of the weirdest sectors in the world for that. There's not a lot of competition. Like, everybody tends to work together. And we have kind of a rich bank of social entrepreneurs who've kind of gone on to big things, who still will make time for our start-its because, we have that good relationship with them. The one that springs immediately in mind is Celia Hodson at Hey Girls, who is, I don't know how many hours she's managed to find in the day, but she seems to always have time for people. And we don't quite hopefully don't do the lifespan of the business, because we are really only funding them for a few years. So let's hope it goes beyond that. But we are very good, I think, with the business support and with the relationship managers. If that does happen, we are very good with people winding stuff up. Sometimes it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, there's no shame in that. There's more stuff that's been learned in those few years than we ever could have learned otherwise. But yeah, as you can probably tell, we're a bit touchy-feely, a bit clingy with our awardees. But we will back off if they don't want that. That's the other thing. We're not stalking them much anymore, since it's disciplinary.
Thank you so much. Now, we've talked a lot about how you support entrepreneurs, startups, businesses. How can people support your organizations? What can we do to support you? Sarah, first of all.
Well, we're actively recruiting now. We're looking for people to come on board. We open it up sort of maybe once a year. So we're now in a recruitment phase for people to come on board and to be a trustee with us, which involves giving a £50 donation every 2 months. And for that, you get to be part of the panel that reviews the applications, and you get to decide where your money goes and what projects we're going to support. And we're also looking for some behind the scenes support as well. We have a team of myself and 3 others who do all the behind the scenes stuff, and we're looking for someone to come aboard and help us with that. So if anybody's interested in also Glasgow and wants to get involved, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. Yes, you can find out more by Googling us and finding more about what we do.
Thank you so much. Gosh, talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Become a trustee, but donate. It's really good. It's really good structure and procedure. Kirsty, what about yourself?
Yeah, so how can people support us? Well, I mean, there's Business Gateway reaches a huge number of businesses, but we don't reach everybody. I suppose in tough times, sometimes we hear about businesses struggling a little bit too late. So I suppose awareness raising is really important. Keeping in mind that it is a free resource. So if there's anybody, everybody in their walks of life has either a friend that runs a business, they've got an uncle, an aunt, they've got a friend of a friend or a cousin that runs a business. So it's raising that awareness, and as I said, we're here to help with business skills. We're here to help build networks. So we do a lot of networking events. So we can't solve everybody's problems, but there's a lot of great benefit in being connected with the business community around you and hearing from other entrepreneurs, other business owners, the struggles that they've been. It can be a lonely place when you start and grow a business. So use the support that we have, and if that helps you, meet 2 or 3 other business owners that you really click with, and then that's who you meet up with on a regular basis for a coffee, then that's a really great achievement in our eyes as well. So yeah, raising awareness for us. I would say with my elevator hat on, we also have something called the Elevator Foundation. So that launched just in the summer. So it's in very early stages. But each year the Elevator Foundation is looking to support a few young entrepreneurs take their first steps in business. So always looking for support on the Elevator Foundation. It is in the regions that we mainly operate in, so that's Aberdeen, Tayside and North and South Lanarkshire. So anybody from those listening from those regions can check out the Elevator Foundation and look and see there. There'll be different bits and pieces in terms of looking at raising some funds, but then we're also looking for kind of mentors for our young people and kind of keeping them in the family, in the group, I suppose.
So good. I love the Elevator Foundation. Need to check that out. And Ray, how can we support FIRSTPORT?
No. Send us social entrepreneurs. Spread the word. Okay, so spread the word about social enterprise, because I'm so sick of going to funding fairs and going, we've never heard of FIRSTPORT or what's a social enterprise. I feel like this now feels like I'm taking crazy pills, where I'm just like, social enterprise has been a thing for like 20 years. How have you not heard about it? It's like not hearing about a BLT or something. It's like, it's one of those things that everybody should know about. And I don't think they do, because I think the phrase has kind of been corrupted a little bit by this idea of social business or business for good or purpose-led, mission-led business, which is a different thing. But if anybody is thinking about moving in that kind of way and actually having a business that gives back to a community, I would rather we were the ones that kind of had that conversation with them before somebody else who doesn't necessarily work in the sector goes, no, it's not this, and then ruins their dreams forever. Because we have had ones that came in that look like private businesses or look like charities, and we have a sit down with them and talk to them and like, no, it's a social enterprise. So yeah, just send us everyone. I don't care. I'm not dealing with them. My team is. We can deal with them. So send us everyone. Open the doors.
Thank you so much. I would love to thank my panelists for joining me tonight and talking about their organizations, the amazing work that they do, the amazing support that they offer. And I would love to encourage you all to connect with them, find out more about them. We will be dropping contact details for all the organizations, so you can find out more and also support. Donate £2, donate £2, donate a £5, but let's keep these amazing organizations going. I did mention at the start that Scottish Women in Business is the largest networking organisation in Scotland, and we do have some many exciting events coming up. So on Tuesday morning, 9:30 to 11, you can join us on Zoom, our monthly coffee morning, where you can network with like-minded women. And on the 15th of November, 9:30 to 11 o'clock, join us at 63rd and 1st in the city centre of Glasgow, where we will be meeting Sheena Hales from Royal Bank of Scotland. Sheena turned Royal Bank of Scotland's head office, Gogarburn, into a distribution centre during the pandemic. You'll be able to hear her story about managing change personally and in her workplace, as well as our coffee morning on the 6th of December, taking place again on 63rd and 1st. So thank you so much to my panelists, and thank you for joining me.